Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, today we're back working over here on the Monarch 612 lathe, working on getting the tailstock lined up and ready to go. So today what I want to work on is alignment. We've got the tailstock pretty much taken apart, all the parts ready to go back together, minus painting and so forth like that. But we do have an issue of alignment between the tailstock and the spindle. And I know that my tailstock is a little bit low. I need to measure, figure out how much, and come up with a game plan on shimming it up to get it raised up into the right position, as well as getting it adjusted left and right. So we're gonna be doing that. Game plan is hopefully I can just build up the bottom of these with some Turcite, which is just some wear strips, which is what I have done in the past on tailstocks. That's what I did on my Monarch Model K lathe. When I did it several years ago, it's worked great. And that's probably what we're going to be doing here. But before I can do that, we need to make those measurements and kind of figure out how far we need to go to make it all work out. Let's get in here, make some measurements, and let's finish taking that tailstock apart and work on getting this thing in proper alignment. All right, I have got a center up here in the headstock of my lathe. I've got a center in the tailstock, and we're just kind of looking at these and comparing them. The center's got a little bit of run out, but it's going to be fine for what we're doing. I can tell, first off, that the tailstock needs to come to me just a little bit. Fortunately, there is an adjustment for that. And I can also tell that the tailstock is a little bit on the low side. And honestly, it's a lot closer than I remembered it being, or I thought it was going to be. So that is a pleasant surprise. So first things first, I am going to adjust the left and right, move it toward me just a little bit. There's a couple of bolts over here. Let me show you. So there are two bolts on this, one on each side. In this top half of the tailstock is on a way that will slide back and forth. And by adjusting these screws, you can adjust this. It's made to be adjustable. It's made so that you can adjust for wear. It's made for that you can actually artificially introduce a taper if you want to turn a taper. So it is completely adjustable. So we're just going to come in here and we're going to do just that. We're going to adjust this thing. So let me I'm going to loosen up this back side and bring it toward me just a little bit. All right, it's coming towards me. I'm just going to kind of eyeball this right now to get it really close. The main thing I'm worried about at the moment is the height, and that's more or less on center. So now I need to measure the difference between those centers, and that'll give me an idea of how high I need to adjust, shim up the bottom of the tailstock. All right, I have come in here with a pair of calipers, and to the best of my ability, back that out just a little bit. This is kind of a little bit of a guesstimation, but I'm measuring about 30 thousandths low on the tailstock. So that ought to get me really close if I can raise this up roughly 30 thousandths. And again, my measurement's not precise, but the good news is on a tailstock, very few tailstocks in the world are in perfect alignment height-wise with the other one. Why? Because they wear over time. As you use it, it's going to drop down in height. In fact, when I took my machinery building class from Richard King several years ago, he recommended that whenever you build up a tailstock, that you do this, put Turcite under it, you actually start out a little bit on the high side, a couple thousandths high, and it will wear down, and at some point it'll be perfect, and then it'll drop back down below that eventually too. Now, is that super important that it be perfectly in alignment? Again, it's not imperative, because if you think about it, with that part being higher or lower in one place or the other, and you're cutting off of the side, the distance or the difference in diameter is going to be super minimal. You could calculate it, but it would, I mean, it's not like if your 2,000ths high, your diameter is going to be off by 2,000ths, or you're going to turn 2,000ths taper or anything like that. It's tenths of a thousandth or less. Particularly as close as I think we can get this. What's the game plan? I've got some Turcite left over from my horizontal boring mill project. This Turcite happens to be about 33 thousandths thick, plus we're going to have a little bit of epoxy in there. So I think we can use this, and it's, like I said, it's going to get us really close. We should be a little bit on the high side, but that's where we want to be. So I think that's the game plan. We're going to go ahead and install some Turcite. All right, I am over here. We're going to go ahead and pull this tailstock off so we can get the Turcite installed. I've got the top section where it should lift up off the bottom section. It's two pieces. Like we showed earlier, it allows you to kind of shift things back and forth, but I'm only picking up the top half, or I'm picking up all of it. I need to kind of break this thing apart. I took the screws out, and that should be all that holds it in place. Let me see what we can do to get that apart. There it goes. Separating this is going to allow me to get the bottom of this thing cleaned up as well as everything else, and just make sure everything's nice. And it'll also make it easier to handle these parts, and yeah, it needed to be done anyway. All right, we got our pieces over here. I'm gonna get the wire wheel out, finish cleaning these up on the top here, and we'll flip this over and we'll start seeing about getting that Turcite put on. Just take the wire wheel and clean this top up here. This is between the two halves, and there's just some gunk and stuff in here. I just want to clean it up real quick. All right, I like that. That's cleaned up real nice. We're going to flip this over now. See if I can do this without having to bring the gantry back over here, the engine hoist rather. Yeah, we can roll this over, no problem. There we go. And you can see the ways on the bottom. All right, I think that's good for what we're doing here. So now what I need to do is start looking at getting some Turcite strips cut that we're going to epoxy in place on these surfaces that will raise things up for us. So let me work on getting that done. So this is the material we'll be putting on here. It's called Turcite. Also goes by the name of Rulon, a little bit different, but kind of the same thing. But basically this is a Teflon type material that has some bronze impregnated into it. And the idea is these are wear strips that go on machine ways. They're made for this application. They work extremely well. A lot of your modern machines, they just put this on there from the factory because it wears so much better than the cast iron on cast iron. And that's what we're going to be putting on here. You just epoxy it in place. This happens to be some that was left over from another job that I did on my horizontal boring mill a while back. So we're just going to basically use what I've got in stock here, and that's going to work out just fine. I like to, have this stuff sticking out a little bit over the edges, and that way I can go back and kind of trim it up after the fact. It will kind of move around on you when you're epoxying it down, so I like to have a little bit of overhang, and you can easily just go in and clean it up with a razor blade again after the fact. So again, we got a little bit oversized, not a lot, and we're going to epoxy that into place right there. And then also need two strips over here. Let's see, I'll go ahead and cut this to length. You might be able to get both of those out of one of these. Cut that in half, we'll see. So Let's see. I think I am. Give me a line to kind of cut down. In fact, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut it in half roughly. That'll give me a little bit of material to trim up on both sides, and it'll work just fine. You kind of got the green side and you kind of got this black side. The green side is what you want to use as the wear surface. The other side gets epoxied in place. So again, we'll just epoxy these in place kind of like such, and we'll trim them up after the epoxy dries. I think we got our strips cut out. All right, now preparing this for epoxying these down, I want to roughen this surface up pretty good. I'm going to use my power scraper, and we're just going to make a mess out of it. The idea here is you want to have something for that epoxy to kind of grip to, so you're not just going on a super flat surface. It'll give some bite, some teeth, I guess you could say, for that to get in. So I'm going to get my power scraper, and we're just going to, like I said, roughen this up to get it ready to go. So this is a two-part epoxy we're using. It's a Waylock 2. This stuff is what is sold by the company I bought the Turcite from for doing this with. It's pretty expensive stuff, but I'm sure probably another epoxy would work fine, but this is what's recommended for it. That's what I'm going with. And it's a 1-to-1 ratio. So I'm just I got a piece of cardboard here. Let's see, this is the hardener, this is the actual resin. So I'm going to take a stick here, and we're just going to get a little bit out, put it on this cardboard for mixing. That should be plenty for what we're going to be doing here. And I use the other end of the stick, and we'll get about a roughly an equal amount. And we'll mix this up really good. I'm just going to take and put some of this on here. You can see I've already roughened up that surface. I actually have a little applicator here that's puts little grooves in there and kind of gets it to the right thickness here. First piece of Turcite here. Kind of put it on here where it needs to be. I want to try to make sure I don't have any epoxy on the top side of this at all. I want that to be nice and clean. Looks good. All right, we'll do these other ones over here. All right, I think I like that. First piece. Take our second piece. And now I'm going to get this picked up and we're going to put it over on the machine and set it on the ways so that it can cure out with the weight of the part, holding it down, forming it to the part that's going to be mating to. So let me get that going here. And this stuff's just going to have to sit overnight to cure out. I got it over here on the machine. It's sitting where the Turcite is between there. The epoxy will dry and cure. We're just going to basically just let this sit overnight. We're not going to touch it until tomorrow. And we can come in here and trim this stuff up and clean things up. But I think we're good to go. Just let her cure. Well, while we're waiting on the epoxy to cure over there, I'm going to go ahead and put a coat of paint on the top half of this tailstock. No reason why we can't go ahead and do that. Paint can be curing while that over there is setting up. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and do this. I still have to paint the bottom half once we get it all finished up. But we'll go ahead and get this knocked out. So I won't make you watch all this, but letting you see what we're doing. Well, there you go. That part of it is painted. We'll let that set up overnight as well, and it should be ready to go back together whenever we get the base finished up. Also, while this Turcite is curing, I want to take the opportunity to look at putting this crank handle on this. This is basically a handle that mounts to the side of the tailstock, and there's a rack up underneath the bottom of this that the carriage moves back and forth on, and you can use that same rack to move the tailstock back and forth, and it hinges up. You can kind of pull it out of the way or let it drop down into place. I guess the problem I've got, if you want to call it a problem, is that, again, because this tailstock was not designed for this specific lathe, very close but not exactly right, I'm going to have to put a block in here to offset this to make it work. It meshes into gear and everything just fine. We just need to offset it, and I'm just trying to look and see how much, and it looks like it needs to be offset about 15/16 of an inch. Probably isn't a super critical measurement because it does hinge, but just kind of coming up with a game plan on how I want to do this down the road. Yes, about it 15/16, 7/8, somewhere along in there. So I think what we will probably end up doing is I'm going to have to set this up on the milling machine and mill out a flat surface in here that's square to the base, because this is rough casting right here. And we'll just take a little block of metal that thickness and mount it in here, and then mount this to that, and we should be fine. I believe that, well, I need to figure out exactly where this needs to go, but on there, it's going to be back towards the back end. But we'll, again, once I kind of get this on, I'm going to slide the tailstock where it's all the way to the back, and then kind of get in the last tooth down here where this will go, and that'll tell me where I need to mount this to be able to get the maximum amount of travel on it. So anyway, just taking a look at that. I think while I've haven't got anything else to do right now, I'm going to go take this and get it cleaned up, take it apart. But let's just do that real quick. I'm over here at the bench. First thing I'm going to do, there's a pin that drops down through there. It looks like there's a set screw right here that holds that in place. See if we can get that out. Is there a set screw in it? Well, there's a threaded hole for a set screw, but there's no set screw in it. So that makes that easier. Let's see if we can drive that pin out. There it comes. That should separate now. There it comes. And we got this little gear on here, and looks like there is a pin in there holding that in place. All right, so this gear is just pinned in place. There was a roll pin down through there. I just took a punch and knocked it out, and it was pretty loose. It actually had some slop in it. Now I should be able to drive this out and get the gear off. So let me see if that'll come on out. Yeah, it's coming. All right, the gear is off, and that should just pull on out the rest of the way, and it does. And the gear, it's kind of chewed up on the ends. I probably should make a new one, but I'm probably not going to, just for the essence of time right now. If I need to go back and do that later on, that'll be a fairly easy thing to do down the road. But I think it'll work for the time being. All right, I'm going to take these back to the wire wheel, get everything cleaned up, and I think we'll have that knocked out. I got all the stuff cleaned up. Looks good. I will note that the gear is a little bit rougher than what I thought it was once I got it cleaned up, got all the gunk off of it. Right now, again, my plan is I'm just going to use this gear for the time being, but while I've got it off, I'm going to go ahead and make a drawing of this, figure out what pitch that is and everything else. And next time I have the dividing head set up over on the milling machine, cutting gears, I can just go ahead and knock one of these out. This is a very easy thing to just swap off and replace, but it'll work fine for the time being, but I do want to, I can do better than that. So we're going to go ahead and put a coat of paint on this, let this be drying, and we got a little bit of time before we'll be having to make the little adapter to put this over on the machine, but we can go ahead and get it knocked out. We've let the epoxy on the Turcite ways set up overnight, so this is ready to pull off of the machine now, and we're going to trim that excess material up, and I think we'll have it pretty much finished up here. There it comes. I'm going to take this back over to the sawhorses where we can work on it. I put some cellophane up underneath some of that to help keep anything sticking to the ways. And we're ready to move it on over. Tell you what, while we got this thing kind of suspended here, I'm going to go ahead and take a razor blade and just kind of trim this Turcite up. Take it over here and get it flipped over. I wanted to get that trimmed up so that I wasn't laying it on that and potentially damaging it. So let's get this moved over here now. take another razor blade here and trying to scrape off some of the epoxy that got up on the bottom of this ledge, and just trimming that up a little bit better on both sides. Just cleaning things up. I don't want that Turcite to be sticking out any more than it has to, or it might get hung on something and want to strip it out. So that's kind of my game plan here. All right, I made a couple of measurements on here. I'm going to make a mark along this that is going to show the area that I actually have contact with on this way. Now, because this tailstock is not designed to go on this lathe, this bottom way down here doesn't quite match up perfectly. And basically, the only part that's making contact with the way below is this outside part. So, you know, this side and here, we got Turcite on there, but it's not actually making contact with anything. We're only going to be actually working on this end down here. Now, I do want to go ahead and put some oil grooves in here. The original had oil grooves in it. So I'm going to kind of draw how I want those to go, and we're going to put them in there. As I was getting ready to put the oil grooves in here, I realized I didn't remember which direction the little Z's went. And I was looking back through pictures, seeing if I took photos. I'm like, man, I'm gonna have to go through video. And then I said, remember, I got the other tailstock base that we're not gonna use, and I can look at it. So I brought it over here, and you can see the little Z pattern. This is just an oil groove in here. You got the same thing in these over here to help distribute the oil around. So we're basically just gonna transfer those over here. All right, I'm gonna actually move these over a little bit to get my spacing right. Basically, they're 3 inches apart. There we go. And I'm just going to use a little piece of steel here and a scraper. And you can just kind of come in here. This Turcite cuts real easily. And I'm just going to put that oil groove right in there. And we'll go all the way down and cut those in. I'll bring you guys back here in a little bit. All right, I got that oil groove cut in here, little Z going down through here, pretty much matching what's on the other side. I'm going to be scraping this Turcite at a later date. Not required to do that yet. We'll make it match the ways over there. In the meantime, I need to get my oil grooves cut in the V grooves over here. Same operation as before. I'm just going to knock it out, and we'll bring you guys back. And just like that, we've got our oil grooves cut in. And like I said, we are going to scrape this over to the machine ways, but that's probably going to be one of my final steps. Got a little roughness in here. We'll straighten all that out once we get it blued up and kind of see where our high spots are, but making progress. Well, guys, I think that's going to be a wrap on this video. We're getting to the point where we need to kind of move on to the next step, and that's going to be probably a video in itself. And we're going to be working on getting that side handle crank that we showed earlier mounted this. It's going to require some milling. It's going to require making a little adapter block and a couple other things. It's going to be a good bit of work entailed in that, and I think we're going to dedicate a whole video to that. So that'll be coming up very soon. And with that, that's going to be a wrap on this one. As always, guys, thanks so much for watching. Please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Those thumbs up and comments are always greatly appreciated. Really helps out with the algorithms over on YouTube. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Big, huge thank you to the subscribers as well as the support site who support through Patreon, PayPal, etc. It allows me to take the time to shoot these videos, to edit the videos, and do all the work that goes into the video production when I could be just working in the shop. Guys, with that, we're going to sign off. We'll catch you on the next video. Again, thanks for watching.